The amber glow of sunset filtered through the half-drawn curtains of apartment 3B, casting long shadows across the worn hardwood floors. Amelia Bennett, a slender woman with tired eyes that contradicted her youthful face, stood frozen in the middle of her modest kitchen. Her trembling hands gripped her phone so tightly her knuckles had turned white. 6 words glared back at her from the screen. "Daddy, please come back," sent to Jackson Montgomery, billionaire CEO of Montgomery Enterprises and her boss of 3 years. "Mommy, did I do something wrong?" Lucy's small voice broke through Amelia's panic. The 6-year-old stood in the doorway, her favorite stuffed rabbit clutched against her chest, brown eyes wide with concern. Amelia forced a smile. "No, sweetie, everything's fine." She tucked her phone into her pocket, heart still racing. "What made you send that message to Mr. Montgomery?" Lucy shuffled her feet. "You said he's your friend, and you look at his picture the way Mrs. Wilson at school looks at pictures of her husband who went to heaven." She twisted the ear of her stuffed rabbit. "I thought maybe he could be my daddy since my real daddy doesn't want to come back." A lump formed in Amelia's throat. 2 years had passed since Robert had walked out, claiming he wasn't cut out for family life. 2 years of single motherhood, of working twice as hard to prove herself at Montgomery Enterprises, while raising Lucy alone. 2 years of secretly falling for a man who existed in a world entirely different from her own. "Lucy, honey," Amelia knelt to meet her daughter's eyes, "Mr. Montgomery is my boss. He's getting married to someone else next month. He's a very important man, and we can't send him messages like that." "But you cry sometimes when you think I'm sleeping," Lucy said with the innocent honesty only children possess. "And you have that picture of you two at the Christmas party. You look happy in it." Amelia closed her eyes briefly. That Christmas party had been a mistake, one night when professional boundaries had blurred under the influence of champagne and holiday spirit. One kiss hidden away from prying eyes that had meant everything to her and probably nothing to him. The next day, Jackson had announced his engagement to Sophia Winters, daughter of his father's oldest friend and business partner, the perfect match for the Montgomery empire. The phone in her pocket vibrated. Amelia's heart stopped. "Is that him?" Lucy asked, her face lighting up with hope. "Bedtime, sweetie," Amelia said, ignoring the question. "Go brush your teeth while I make your lunch for tomorrow." Once Lucy had disappeared down the hall, Amelia pulled out her phone with shaking hands. A text from Jackson Montgomery stared back at her. "My office, 8 a.m. tomorrow." 4 words that could end her career. Amelia barely slept that night. By morning she had rehearsed a dozen different explanations, each sounding more pathetic than the last. After dropping Lucy at school with a forced smile and a promise of ice cream later, she drove to the gleaming Montgomery Enterprises building in downtown. The elevator ride to the top floor felt like a journey to the gallows. When the doors slid open, Amelia stepped into the executive suite, straightening her modest navy dress, the most professional outfit she owned. Jackson's executive assistant, Diane, glanced up with a look that sent chills down Amelia's spine. "He's waiting for you," she said with unusual solemnity. "Go right in." Jackson Montgomery stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of his corner office, his back to the door. At 42, he commanded every room he entered, not just because of his wealth, but because of an innate confidence that seemed coded into his DNA. Dark hair with distinguished touches of silver at the temples, broad shoulders under an impeccably tailored suit, and a profile that belonged on the cover of Business Weekly. "Close the door, Amelia," he said without turning. She obeyed, her mouth dry. "Mr. Montgomery, about the text." 3 years, he interrupted, finally turning to face her. His steel blue eyes locked onto hers. 3 years you've worked for me, and I thought I knew you." Amelia swallowed hard. "Sir, my daughter got hold of my phone. She's 6 and doesn't understand." "Daddy." Jackson's voice was dangerously quiet. "Please come back." Heat rushed to Amelia's face. "Lucy's father left us 2 years ago. She sees you as... She's confused about our professional relationship. I've explained to her that you're just my boss." "Just your boss." Jackson repeated her words flatly. He moved to his desk, picking up a tabloid magazine and tossing it toward her. "According to the Sentinel, I'm much more than that." The headline made Amelia's blood run cold. "Montgomery's secret office romance." CEO seen comforting executive assistant late night. Below was a grainy photo of Jackson's hand on her shoulder as they exited the building at 10 p.m. after a particularly grueling project deadline 3 weeks ago. "This ran this morning," Jackson said. "Curious timing, wouldn't you say?" "I had nothing to do with this," Amelia whispered, horror mounting. "I would never—" "The Winters are furious," Jackson continued, as if she hadn't spoken. "William Winters called me at 6 a.m. questioning whether I'm still good enough for his daughter. My father summoned me for breakfast to remind me what's at stake with this merger." He stopped abruptly, running a hand through his hair. "And then there's Sophia. Sophia Winters, the perfect socialite with family connections worth billions. The woman Amelia could never compete with, even if she tried." "I'll resign," Amelia said quietly. "You can tell everyone I was let go because of budget cuts. I'll find another job and—" "You think I want you to resign?" Jackson's voice rose sharply. "Don't you? Your wedding is in 3 weeks. This scandal is exactly what certain people have been waiting for," Jackson finished, his expression hardening. "Someone leaked that photo deliberately, and hours later I receive a text calling me daddy. What am I supposed to think, Amelia?" The implication hit her like a slap. "You think I'm trying to blackmail you? For what? Money?" Tears of anger and humiliation burned her eyes. "I have never wanted anything from you except the chance to do my job. Lucy made a mistake because she misses her father and saw me looking at a photo of us from the Christmas party. That's all." "The Christmas party," Jackson repeated, something flickering in his eyes. Amelia wished the floor would open up and swallow her. "I should go. I'll have my desk cleared by lunch." "No," Jackson said firmly. "You're not going anywhere until we sort this out." He pressed a button on his desk. "Diane, clear my morning and get me Greg from security." He released the button before his assistant could respond. "Someone is trying to sabotage me, and I need to know who." "What does that have to do with me?" Amelia asked. Jackson studied her for a long moment. "Because I think they're using you to do it, and I need your help to find out who and why." Before Amelia could respond, a sharp knock came at the door. Greg Parker, head of security, entered with a somber expression. "You wanted to see me, Mr. Montgomery." "Greg, I need to know who leaked that photo to the Sentinel." Jackson's voice was ice-cold. "And I need to know if anyone has been accessing Ms. Bennett's workstation or personal information." Greg nodded. "I'll get on it right away, sir." After the security chief left, an uncomfortable silence fell between them. Amelia finally gathered the courage to speak. "I should call Lucy's school, make sure she's okay after yesterday." Something softened in Jackson's eyes. "How is she?" The unexpected question caught Amelia off guard. "She's struggling sometimes. It's not easy explaining to a 6-year-old why her father doesn't call or visit." Jackson nodded, his expression unreadable. "And the text? What exactly prompted that?" Amelia sighed. "She found an old photo from the company Christmas party. I was looking at it. She noticed and asked questions. I told her we were friends, and she wants a father figure in her life. I'm sorry, I never meant to cause problems." For a moment, Jackson seemed lost in thought. Then his phone rang, breaking the tension. He glanced at the screen and frowned. "It's William Winters. I need to take this." He looked at Amelia. "Stay here, we're not finished." As Jackson took the call, turning away for privacy, Amelia stood awkwardly in the middle of his vast office, feeling as though her world was collapsing around her. One innocent text, one little girl's wishful thinking, and now her career and reputation hung in the balance. Little did she know, this was only the beginning of a chain of events that would unravel secrets long buried and challenge everything she thought she knew about Jackson Montgomery and herself. Jackson's conversation with William Winters lasted nearly 20 minutes. Though Amelia could only hear Jackson's side, the tension in his voice and the stiff set of his shoulders told her everything she needed to know. The Winters family was not pleased. When Jackson finally ended the call, he stared at his phone for a long moment before setting it down carefully on his desk. "They want me to fire you," he said, without preamble. Amelia nodded, already gathering her purse. "I understand. I said that's what they want, not what I'm doing." Jackson's voice had an edge to it she'd rarely heard before. "Sit down, Amelia." She sank into one of the leather chairs across from his desk, confusion mingling with the dread in her stomach. "Tell me about Lucy," he said unexpectedly. What? Your daughter. Tell me about her. He leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. Amelia hesitated, uncertain of his motives. She's 6, smart, too smart sometimes. She loves dinosaurs and wants to be a paleontologist. She has her father's eyes but thankfully got my sense of direction. A small smile tugged at her lips despite the circumstances. She has a big imagination and an even bigger heart. And her father. The smile vanished. Robert left when she was 4, said he wasn't ready for the responsibility, that he felt trapped. He moved to Seattle with a flight attendant he met on a business trip. He calls on Lucy's birthday sometimes, if he remembers. Jackson's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Does he provide support? The minimum required by the court, Amelia said, uncomfortable with the personal turn of the conversation. Mr. Montgomery, I don't see how this is relevant to— Jackson, he interrupted. After 3 years and a scandal in the making, I think you can call me Jackson. Before Amelia could respond, his desk phone buzzed. Mr. Montgomery, Ms. Winters is here to see you, Diane's voice announced. A flicker of something, resignation, frustration, crossed Jackson's face. Send her in. Amelia rose quickly. I should go. Stay, Jackson commanded, but then added more gently, please. The door opened, and Sophia Winters swept in like a cool breeze. Tall and slender, with honey-blonde hair pulled back in an elegant chignon, she embodied old money and privilege in her cream Chanel suit. Her gaze immediately landed on Amelia, blue eyes narrowing slightly. Darling, she said to Jackson, her voice pleasant but with an unmistakable edge, I didn't realize you were in a meeting. Jackson stood. Sophia, this is Amelia Bennett, my executive assistant. Yes, I believe I've seen your name on Jackson's calendar often enough. Sophia extended a manicured hand, though I must say, you're all over a different kind of paper today. Amelia shook her hand briefly, maintaining her professional composure despite the jab. Ms. Winters, congratulations on your engagement. Thank you. Sophia turned to Jackson, placing a possessive hand on his arm. Daddy's furious about that tabloid nonsense. Mother's had to increase her Xanax dosage. She laughed lightly, as if sharing an amusing anecdote. The wedding planner called in a panic about the guest list. Apparently, several of the senator's staff are suddenly unsure about attending. It's being handled, Jackson said firmly. Greg is investigating how the photo was leaked. Sophia's gaze flicked back to Amelia. And what about the text message? Daddy mentioned something about that too. Amelia froze. How did William Winters know about the text? Jackson's expression darkened. I didn't mention any text to your father. A slight flush crept up Sophia's neck. He must have heard it from someone else then. You know how the rumor mill works. She waved a dismissive hand. The point is, this situation needs to be resolved quickly. The merger is exactly why someone might be targeting me, Jackson cut in. Ms. Bennett and I were just discussing that possibility. Sophia's perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose. You think someone deliberately leaked that photo? Who? That's what we're trying to determine, Jackson replied. And until we do, Ms. Bennett will continue in her role. Surely you can't be serious, Sophia said, her pleasant facade slipping slightly. The optics are terrible, Jackson. People are already talking. Let them talk, Jackson said with a sharpness that surprised both women. I don't make personnel decisions based on gossip. A tense silence followed. Amelia wished she could disappear into the expensive carpet beneath her feet. Sophia finally broke the silence with a tight smile. Of course, darling. You always know best. She checked her diamond-encrusted watch. I should go. I have a final fitting for my dress at 11. She leaned in to kiss Jackson's cheek, but paused to whisper something in his ear. Whatever she said made Jackson's expression harden, though he nodded curtly. I'll see you tonight at the charity gala. After Sophia left, the office felt different, heavier somehow. Amelia stood awkwardly, unsure of what to say or do. I should return to my desk, she finally offered. There's the quarterly report to finish. Jackson nodded absently, his mind clearly elsewhere. Yes, but we'll continue this conversation later. He looked at her directly. And Amelia, don't discuss this situation with anyone, not even Diane. Back at her desk, Amelia tried to focus on work, but her mind kept replaying the morning's events. How did William Winters know about Lucy's text? No one knew except her, Lucy, and Jackson, unless Jackson had told someone else. which seemed unlikely given his reaction to Sophia's comment. Her desk phone rang, startling her from her thoughts. "Ms. Bennett." It was Greg from security. "Could you come down to my office? There's something you should see." 10 minutes later, Amelia stood in Greg's office, staring at the security footage on his monitor. The timestamp showed 7:15 p.m. the previous evening, long after she'd left to pick up Lucy from after-school care. On the screen, a figure in a maintenance uniform used a key card to enter her office, went straight to her computer, and spent several minutes there before leaving. "That's not regular maintenance," Greg explained, "and whoever it is used a master key card that shouldn't exist. I've enhanced the image as much as possible, but with the cap and the angle of the cameras, the figure's face remained frustratingly obscured." "Could they have accessed my email from my computer?" Amelia asked, a chill running down her spine. Greg nodded grimly. "If they had the right skills, absolutely. And they could have seen any text messages if your phone was synced to your email account." Which it was. A requirement for all executive staff. "There's more," Greg continued, pulling up another video. "This is from 3 weeks ago, the night that photo was taken. The footage showed Amelia and Jackson leaving the building late at night. As they reached the street, Jackson placed his hand on her shoulder, the exact moment captured in the tabloid photo. But from this angle, Amelia could see what the photo didn't show. A car approaching with its high beams on, nearly hitting them. Jackson had pulled her back instinctively. Someone was waiting for that moment, Greg concluded. The timing is too perfect. "But why?" Amelia murmured. "Why target me?" "Not you," Greg corrected. "Mr. Montgomery, or more specifically, the Montgomery-Winters merger." The pieces started falling into place. The merger between Montgomery Enterprises and Winters Holdings would create one of the largest financial conglomerates in the country. There were surely people who didn't want to see that happen. Competitors, disgruntled employees, perhaps even someone within one of the companies. "You should tell Mr. Montgomery about this right away," Amelia said. Greg shook his head. "Already did. He's called an emergency meeting with the board at noon. He wants you there." "Me? Why?" "Because," said Jackson's voice from the doorway, making both of them turn, "you're at the center of this now, whether you like it or not." He looked grim. "And I just received a call from Pierce Matthews at the Sentinel. They're running another story tomorrow, claiming you and I have been having an affair for months and that Lucy is actually my child." Amelia gasped. "That's absurd. Lucy looks nothing like you, and we never—" She stopped, her face burning. "I know that," Jackson said tersely. "But the public doesn't, and neither does my board, or the Winters family." He checked his watch. "The meeting starts in 30 minutes. We need to prepare." As they walked to the elevator, Amelia's phone rang. Her heart sank when she saw it was Lucy's school. "Ms. Bennett, this is Principal Warner from Oak Ridge Elementary. There's been an incident with Lucy. She got upset during recess when some of the children were teasing her. Apparently one of the parents saw the tabloid this morning and mentioned it to their child." Amelia closed her eyes, her worst fears confirmed. "I'll be right there." She turned to Jackson, who had been watching her with concern. "I have to go, Lucy." "I heard," he said. To her surprise, his voice softened. "Go. We'll reschedule the board meeting." "But your daughter needs you," he said firmly. "Family comes first." The words hung between them as the elevator arrived. Family comes first. It was the first time in 3 years she'd heard Jackson Montgomery say anything that contradicted the ruthless businessman persona he showed the world. As the elevator doors closed behind her, Amelia couldn't shake the feeling that there was far more to Jackson Montgomery than she had ever been allowed to see, and that somehow her life and Lucy's had become entangled with his in ways she couldn't begin to understand. Lucy sat in the nurse's office, her small shoulders hunched, tear tracks still visible on her flushed cheeks. When she spotted Amelia in the doorway, she launched herself into her mother's arms. "Mommy!" she sobbed. "Tyler said you're going to jail because you stole someone's husband." Amelia's heart sank as she held her daughter close. "I'm not going to jail, sweetheart. Tyler is wrong. Sometimes people say mean things that aren't true." Principal Warner, a compassionate woman in her 50s, approached with a sympathetic smile. "Lucy was very brave, but I thought it best she go home for the day. We've spoken to Tyler's parents about appropriate conversations around children." Amelia nodded gratefully. Thank you, I'm so sorry about all this. These things happen, Principal Warner said kindly. Just focus on taking care of Lucy. We'll see her tomorrow. Outside in the parking lot, Amelia helped Lucy into her booster seat, fighting back tears of her own. How had their lives spiraled so drastically in less than 24 hours? Mommy, are you in trouble because of the text I sent? Lucy asked, her voice small. No, sweetie, Amelia reassured her, though the truth was far more complicated. Some people are saying untrue things about Mommy and Mr. Montgomery, but it will all get sorted out. I told Tyler that Mr. Montgomery is just your friend, Lucy said, but he said his mum showed him your picture in a magazine and said you were a homewrecker. Her brow furrowed. What's a homewrecker, Mommy? Amelia gripped the steering wheel tighter. It's a mean name that isn't true about Mommy. You don't need to worry about it. As they pulled into their apartment complex, Amelia noticed an unfamiliar black SUV with tinted windows parked nearby. A sense of unease crept up her spine. Let's get inside quickly, she said, hurrying Lucy along. They had just reached their door when the elevator down the hall dinged. Two men in expensive suits stepped out, one older with salt and pepper hair, the other younger but with the same commanding presence. Amelia recognized them immediately. Harold Montgomery, Jackson's father and founder of Montgomery Enterprises, and his younger son, Philip. Miss Bennett, Harold called, his voice deceptively pleasant. A moment of your time, please. Amelia fumbled with her keys. This isn't a good time, my daughter. This won't take long, Harold insisted, approaching with Philip close behind. We simply want to, clarify a few things. Reluctantly, Amelia opened her apartment door. Lucy, go to your room and put on a movie, okay? Mommy needs to talk to these gentlemen. Lucy eyed the Montgomery men suspiciously, but obeyed, disappearing down the short hallway. What do you want? Amelia asked, once they were alone in her small living room. Harold didn't bother with pleasantries. $50,000. Amelia stared at him. Excuse me. $50,000, he repeated, in exchange for your resignation and a signed non-disclosure agreement. You'll also agree to leave the state and have no further contact with my son. The audacity of it struck Amelia like a physical blow. You think I'm blackmailing your son? Philip smirked. We think you saw an opportunity and took it. Small apartment, single mom, dead-end career trajectory. Why not try to cash in on your proximity to Jackson? Get out, Amelia said, her voice shaking with anger. Get out of my home right now. Harold's expression hardened. Don't be foolish. This is a generous offer, far more than someone in your position deserves. I have never wanted anything from Jackson except a professional relationship, Amelia said. The tabloid stories are lies. Someone is trying to sabotage the merger, and for some reason they're using me to do it. A convenient explanation, Harold scoffed. But even if that were true, the damage is done. Your continued presence in my son's life threatens everything we've worked for. The Winters are already wavering on the merger. That's not my problem, Amelia fired back. Harold's eyes narrowed dangerously. I can make it your problem. One call to my friends at the district attorney's office about potential corporate espionage, and you'll find yourself in a legal battle you can't afford to fight. How would your daughter feel about visiting her mother in prison? The threat hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Amelia felt sick. You have until tomorrow to decide, Harold said, placing a business card on her coffee table. My lawyer will handle the paperwork. $50,000, and this all goes away. After they left, Amelia sank onto her couch, trembling. The Montgomerys were powerful enough to follow through on Harold's threats. She had no doubt about that, but taking their money would be an admission of guilt for something she hadn't done. Her phone rang, displaying Jackson's number. She hesitated before answering. Amelia, are you all right? How's Lucy? His concern seemed genuine, which only confused her more. We're fine, she said guardedly. Good. Listen, the board meeting has been postponed until tomorrow, but I need to see you. There have been developments. He paused. Is there someone who can watch Lucy for a few hours? Amelia's neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, agreed to look after Lucy, though the older woman couldn't quite hide her curiosity about the situation. I saw your picture in the paper, she said. Don't you worry, Mija. People always gossip about what they don't understand. Jackson had sent a car, not his usual driver, but a woman from his security team named Valerie. For privacy, she explained, as she drove Amelia not to Montgomery Enterprises. but to a small upscale restaurant in a quiet part of the city. Inside, Jackson sat at a private table in the back. To Amelia's surprise, Greg from security was with him, along with a woman she didn't recognize. "Amelia, this is Kate Foster," Jackson said as she sat down. "She's a private investigator I've worked with in the past." Kate nodded in greeting. "Ms. Bennett." "What's going on?" Amelia asked, feeling increasingly out of her depth. Greg slid a tablet across the table. On it was a series of photos showing Philip Montgomery meeting with Pierce Matthews, the editor of the Sentinel. "These were taken 2 days ago," Greg explained. "Right before the first story broke." Amelia stared at the images in disbelief. "Philip is behind the tabloid stories? But why would he want to sabotage his own family's company?" "Because it's not his company," Jackson said grimly. "Not anymore. 6 months ago, my father removed Philip from his executive position after he nearly bankrupted one of our subsidiaries with his reckless decisions. He's been bitter ever since, especially after I was named the sole heir to control the company." "But sabotaging the merger hurts the whole family, doesn't it?" Amelia asked. "Not if you've secretly bought shares in your biggest competitor," Kate interjected. "Philip's been quietly investing in Blackwood Financial for months. If the Montgomery-Winters merger falls apart, Blackwood stands to gain significantly." Amelia's head was spinning. "So he's using me as a pawn to destroy his own brother's reputation and derail the merger?" "It appears so," Jackson confirmed, "but we need more concrete evidence before confronting him. That's where you come in." Amelia's stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" Jackson leaned forward. "Your apartment is bugged. We found at least 3 listening devices when my security team swept it while you were at Lucy's school." "Your father and Philip were just at my apartment," Amelia said, realization dawning. "They offered me $50,000 to resign and leave the state." Jackson's expression darkened. "Did they now? And what did you tell them?" "To get out." A hint of a smile touched Jackson's lips. "That sounds like you." "But they threatened me," Amelia continued. "Your father said he could have me investigated for corporate espionage." "Empty threats," Jackson assured her. "But this does confirm my suspicions about my father's involvement." "You think he's working with Philip?" Greg asked. "Not deliberately," Jackson replied, "but he's always favored Philip, always made excuses for him. If Philip convinced him that Amelia was somehow threatening the company—" He shook his head. "My father would do anything to protect the Montgomery legacy." "Including threatening a single mother," Kate observed. "We need to be careful," Greg cautioned. "If Philip realizes we're onto him, he might accelerate his plans." "Which is why we need Amelia," Jackson said. "We need to set a trap, and you're the perfect bait." Amelia stiffened. "Excuse me?" "Let me explain," Jackson said quickly. "The charity gala tonight. All of New York's elite will be there, including the Winters and both my father and Philip. If you attend as my guest, it will send Philip into damage control mode. He'll make a move, and when he does, we'll be ready." "You want me to attend a high society event where everyone thinks I'm your mistress?" Amelia asked incredulously. "What about Lucy? What about the threats your father made?" "Lucy will be safe. I've already arranged for round-the-clock security at your apartment building. As for the gala—" Jackson hesitated. "I know I'm asking a lot, but this may be our only chance to expose Philip before he does irreparable damage." "What about Sophia?" Amelia asked. "Surely she won't appreciate you bringing me as your date." A strange expression crossed Jackson's face. "Sophia and I have an understanding." "What does that mean?" "It means," Jackson said carefully, "that our engagement was always more of a business arrangement than a love match. The Winters and the Montgomerys have been trying to merge their companies for a generation. This marriage was the final piece." "So you don't love her?" Amelia stated, an unexpected flutter in her chest. "No," Jackson admitted, "and she doesn't love me. But we both understand our responsibilities to our families." Amelia thought of Lucy, of her tiny face crumpled in tears at school today, of the life they'd built together after Robert left, of how fragile that life suddenly seemed. "If I do this," she said slowly, "I want your word that when it's over, Lucy and I will be protected. From Philip, from your father, from the press, all of it." "You have it," Jackson promised without hesitation. "And more. Whatever happens tonight, I'll make sure you and Lucy are taken care of." As Kate and Greg began outlining the plan for the evening, Amelia couldn't shake the feeling that she was standing at a crossroads. After tonight, nothing would ever be the same, for better or worse. What she didn't know was just how right she was, or that the biggest revelation of all was yet to come. The Waldorf Astoria ballroom glittered with crystal chandeliers and the flash of diamonds around the necks of New York's elite. Amelia stood just inside the entrance, feeling exposed in the midnight blue gown Jackson had sent to her apartment that afternoon, a dress that fit her perfectly, as though it had been made for her. "Remember the plan," Kate murmured beside her, elegant in black and posing as another guest. "Stay visible. Let Philip see you. Greg and I will handle the rest." Amelia nodded, her throat dry. Somewhere in the crowd, Jackson was waiting along with Sophia, Harold, Philip, and the entire Winters family. They had arrived separately to maximize the impact of their entrance together. "Miss Bennet?" A young server approached. "Mr. Montgomery asks that you join him by the East Terrace." Following the server through the crowd, Amelia felt the weight of curious stares and whispered comments. The tabloids had done their work. Everyone knew who she was. Jackson stood alone on the terrace, breathtaking in his tuxedo. When he turned and saw her, something flickered in his eyes that made her pulse quicken. "You look beautiful," he said simply. "Thank you for the dress," she replied, self-conscious. "It's not what I'm used to." "It suits you." He offered his arm. "Are you ready?" She took a deep breath. "As I'll ever be." They entered the ballroom together, and the effect was immediate. Conversations faltered, heads turned. A path seemed to clear before them, as Jackson guided her confidently through the crowd, nodding at acquaintances as though nothing were amiss. Across the room, Sophia stood with her parents and Harold Montgomery. Her eyes met Amelia's briefly, and to Amelia's surprise she gave an almost imperceptible nod before turning back to her conversation. "Jackson." William Winters stepped into their path, his smile tight. "Bold move, bringing your assistant." "Amelia is my guest," Jackson replied calmly, "and given the circumstances, I thought transparency was the best approach." "Transparency," William repeated with a humorless laugh. "Is that what we're calling it?" Before Jackson could respond, Philip appeared at his father's side, a champagne flute in hand. "Brother, I see the rumors are true after all." His gaze slid to Amelia. "Ms. Bennet. Quite a step up from executive assistant to... What exactly should we call your position now?" Amelia felt Jackson tense beside her, but she placed a restraining hand on his arm. "Mr. Montgomery, Philip, I understand you've been spending time with Pierce Matthews from the Sentinel recently. Any particular reason?" Philip's smile faltered slightly. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "Strange. We have photos that suggest otherwise." She kept her voice light, as though discussing nothing more consequential than the weather. Harold stepped forward, eyes narrowing. "What game are you playing, Ms. Bennet?" "No game, Mr. Montgomery," Amelia replied. "Just clearing the air. After all, transparency is important, isn't it?" A commotion near the entrance drew their attention. Greg appeared, escorting Pierce Matthews himself into the ballroom. The tabloid editor looked distinctly uncomfortable as Greg guided him straight toward their group. "What is the meaning of this?" Harold demanded. "This is a private event." "Mr. Matthews has something he'd like to share," Jackson said. "Don't you, Pierce?" The editor shifted nervously. "I was paid to run those stories about Jackson and Ms. Bennet, given false information and doctored photos." "By whom?" William Winters asked sharply. Pierce's eyes flicked to Philip, who had gone pale. "I'm not at liberty to say." "Perhaps this will refresh your memory," Kate said, appearing beside Greg and holding up her phone with the incriminating photos displayed. Philip laughed unconvincingly. "Photoshopped, obviously. We also have the wire transfers," Kate continued. "Quite sloppy, really, using a shell company that leads right back to your personal account." Harold turned to his younger son, his expression thunderous. "Philip, my office now." "Father, I can explain—" "Not another word," Harold hissed. "You've done enough damage." As Harold dragged Philip away, William Winters regarded Jackson with newfound respect. "It seems we've all been manipulated. My apologies for doubting you, Jackson." "The merger isn't in jeopardy, then?" Jackson asked. "Not from our side," William confirmed, "though I believe you and Sophia have some matters to discuss." As if on cue, Sophia approached, looking perfectly composed despite the drama unfolding. "Jackson, could we have a moment?" They stepped away, leaving Amelia with the Winters. An awkward silence fell. Miss Bennet, Mrs. Winters finally said, "It appears we owe you an apology as well." We jumped to conclusions. "It's understandable," Amelia replied diplomatically. "You were protecting your daughter and your family interests." "Yes." "Well," William said gruffly, "integrity matters in business. Jackson showed his tonight." He glanced toward where Jackson and Sophia were deep in conversation. "Though I fear our companies may be aligning in a different way than we anticipated." Across the room, Sophia smiled at something Jackson said, then leaned in to kiss his cheek before walking away. When Jackson returned to Amelia's side, his expression was unreadable. "Everything all right?" she asked quietly. "Better than all right," he replied. "Sophia and I have decided to call off the engagement." Amelia's eyes widened. "But the merger will proceed as a straightforward business transaction without the marriage component." A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Turns out Sophia has been seeing someone else for months, her yoga instructor." She was as relieved as I was to end the charade. Before Amelia could process this revelation, Kate appeared again. "We have a problem. Phillips disappeared, and he sent an email to every major news outlet in the city just before he left." Jackson tensed. "What kind of email?" "The kind that contains a recording of your father offering Amelia money to disappear," Kate said grimly. "Along with allegations that you orchestrated this whole scene tonight to frame him and push him out of the company." "My father did what?" Jackson's voice was dangerously quiet. "We need to go," Kate urged. "There are already reporters gathering outside." 10 minutes later, they were in Jackson's car, speeding away from the gala. "Take us to Miss Bennet's apartment," Jackson instructed his driver. "We need to get Lucy." "Lucy? Why?" Amelia asked, alarmed. "Because my brother is vindictive and desperate," Jackson explained. "And he knows the easiest way to hurt me now is through you and Lucy." "But how would hurting us hurt you?" Amelia asked, confusion evident in her voice. Jackson looked at her then, really looked at her, as though seeing her for the first time. "Because I care about you, Amelia, more than I should. More than I've allowed myself to admit." The admission hung between them as the car sped through the night. Amelia's mind raced, trying to make sense of everything. "Where will we go?" "My place in the Hamptons," Jackson said. "It's secure, private, and not associated with the Montgomery name. We'll be safe there while this blows over." When they reached Amelia's apartment, Mrs. Rodriguez met them at the door, her expression worried. "There was a man," she said. "He came asking about Lucy. I didn't like the look of him, so I said you'd moved away. He left, but I was scared, so I packed some of Lucy's things." She gestured to a small suitcase by the door. "Where is Lucy now?" Amelia asked, her heart racing. "Sleeping in my apartment," Mrs. Rodriguez assured her. "I didn't want to leave her alone here." "You did the right thing," Jackson said, pressing a generous handful of bills into the woman's hand. "Thank you." 20 minutes later, they were on the road again, Lucy still half asleep in the back seat beside Amelia. "Adventure," she mumbled drowsily. "Yes, sweetheart," Amelia said, stroking her hair. "A little adventure." "Is Mr. Montgomery coming too?" Lucy asked, peering at Jackson in the front seat. "Yes, I am," he replied, turning to smile at her. "Is that okay with you?" Lucy considered this seriously. "Are you and Mommy friends again?" Jackson's eyes met Amelia's over Lucy's head. "We're figuring that out," he said softly. The Hamptons' house turned out to be a charming beach cottage rather than the mansion Amelia had expected. "It belonged to my mother," Jackson explained, as he carried the sleeping Lucy inside. "The only property my father doesn't know about or control." After settling Lucy in one of the bedrooms, they sat together on the porch, listening to the distant sound of waves. Dawn was breaking, painting the sky in soft pinks and golds. "I'm sorry about all of this," Jackson said finally. "Are you and Lucy being dragged into my family's dysfunction?" "It wasn't your fault," Amelia replied. "But I still don't understand why you care so much about what happens to us." Jackson was quiet for a long moment. "That night at the Christmas party," he began hesitantly, when I kissed you, I told myself it was a mistake, that I had responsibilities to my family, to the company. The engagement to Sophia was already in the works." He sighed deeply. "But I couldn't stop thinking about you. Your intelligence, your strength, the way you've created this beautiful life for Lucy despite everything." "So when Lucy texted you," Amelia prompted. "It felt like fate," Jackson admitted. A chance to acknowledge what I've been feeling all this time. He turned to face her fully. I don't expect anything from you, Amelia. But I want you to know that whatever happens with my family, with the company, my priority is making sure you and Lucy are safe and happy. And what about you? Amelia asked softly. What would make you happy, Jackson? Instead of answering, he leaned forward and kissed her, gently at first, then with growing intensity as she responded, her hands coming up to frame his face. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Jackson rested his forehead against hers. That, he whispered, you. A chance to see if this could be real. What about your family, the company, the merger? Amelia asked, practical even as her heart soared. The merger will proceed. William Winters and I have an understanding. My father... Jackson sighed. He'll either accept my choices or he won't. But I'm done living my life according to his plans. And Philip? Will face consequences for his actions. Greg has enough evidence to ensure that. As the sun rose higher, casting long shadows across the beach, Lucy appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Mommy? Mr. Montgomery. Good morning, sweetheart, Amelia said, holding out her arms. Lucy climbed into her lap, looking curiously between the two adults. Are we on vacation? She asked. Jackson smiled. Something like that. How would you feel about staying here for a while? The beach is just down those steps. Lucy's eyes widened. Really? Can we build sandcastles? Absolutely, Jackson promised. In fact, I'm something of a sandcastle expert. Lucy studied him thoughtfully. Are you going to be my daddy now? Amelia felt her cheeks flush. Lucy? Not right away, Jackson answered gently. That's something that takes time, but I'd like to be your friend first, if that's okay with you. Lucy nodded solemnly. I'd like that. And Mommy would too. She smiles more when you're around. As Lucy ran off to explore the cottage, Amelia and Jackson remained on the porch, hands entwined, watching the waves roll in. The future was uncertain. There would be fallout from the scandal, difficult conversations with family, adjustments for all of them. But for the first time in years, Amelia felt a sense of possibility, not because Jackson was wealthy or powerful, but because he saw her, really saw her, and chose her anyway. And she, with her eyes wide open, was choosing him back. So, Jackson said, squeezing her hand, what do you think about building those sandcastles? Amelia smiled. I think it's the perfect place to start.